Okay, yeah, just a bit about us. We're a UK-based charity that provides a voice for our environment and those who depend on it when it faces harm from armed conflicts and military activities. And we're just going to introduce the WISEN system, explain why we developed it and how it works and how it can contribute to a broader understanding of environmental harm in armed conflicts. So when you think about the impacts of war, we often think first about the immediate and human consequences, death, injuries, and displacement and destruction. But armed conflicts also damage the environmental systems that sustain life. They contaminate water supplies, pollute air and soil, destroy agricultural land, and damage ecosystems, and undermine public health for years or even decades after the fighting ends. Environmental harm is therefore not separate from humanitarian consequences of war, it underpins many of them. There is also a growing recognition that landscapes, ecosystems, and biodiversity possess their own inherent value and deserve protection. Key to flourishing societies post-conflict is a recovery that ensures all have access to this healthy environment, and so recoveries must be sustainable and green. We've seen the development of global monitoring systems for many dimensions of conflict and crisis. Conflict, violence, civilian harm, health, food insecurity, and displacement are all monitored systematically by civil society. This data has transformed how conflicts are understood, communicated, and responded to. But when it comes to environmental harm in war, no global equivalent system exists. And the way we document environmental harm is inherently fragmented. Satellites, conflict data sets, local reporting, open source investigations, ground measurements, citizen science, and environmental assessments all provide important pieces of the picture. However, this information varies drastically between conflicts. What we hope that WISEN offers is a way to connect these fragmented data sets and coherently characterize environmental harm. This challenge is what motivated the development of WISEN. So WISEN stands for the Wartime Incidents to Environment Database. I'll briefly describe what we hope it can achieve and how the framework currently works. So WISEN provides a framework for systematically documenting environmental harm. The goal is not just to collect data, but to make environmental harm visible and actionable. WISEN can support assessments and remediation, recovery and reconstruction, justice and accountability, research and understanding, and a stronger protection and advocacy. It's our ambition for WISEN to cover conflicts all over the world and become part of a global conflict and humanitarian data commons. Is built around three levels of data designed to function across different conflict contexts. Level 0 is the broadest layer, assessing damage to environmentally significant objects. Level 1 and 2 move to incidents. Damage assessments show what was destroyed. Incident-based approaches reveal how environmental harm unfolds, including fires and leaks and pollution release. Together in information-rich conflicts, this hierarchy helps characterize both the breadth and depth of environmental harm. So let's begin with level 0. So level 0 kind of entirely relies on satellite imagery. So can is the broadest layer and it relies it entirely on satellite imagery. So this can be radar or optical, and we combine it with infrastructure data such as from OpenStreetMap. So it's really useful in where information is limited. So for example, in inaccessible areas where there's information blackouts or highly active front lines. So far, the team has undertaken this work manually, but because of the kind of scale of this task, we've kind of recently launched WISEN Watch on Zooniverse. It's a citizen science platform, a way for anyone to help assess damage in Lebanon or Iran. By making this step participatory, we hope to decentralize and expand this work. Feel free to scan the QR code, or I'll put a link into the chat as well. So let's move on to level 1. So this moves from damaged facilities, it gets covered in level 0, to kind of verified environmental incidents. We collect potential incidents from social media, emergency services, and news reporting, and other open source investigations and curated data sets. And it's included in the WISEN if it meets our definition of environmental harm, an event that has or may result in substantial pollution, environmental health impacts, or kind of contributes to climate breakdown, or a combination of any of the above. For each incident, we calculate a risk score from two elements, so a theoretical harm score based on the type and the location of the facility, and an event magnitude score based on what appears to have occurred, a fire, explosion, pollutant risk. And the highest risk incidents are then prioritized for detailed investigation. So here we are. So this is level 2. So this is for each case, we'll compile social and mass media chronologies, annotated satellite imagery, geolocated footage and photographs, and subsequent scientific or official reporting when available. We then undertake a structured environmental harm assessment, looking at the likely pollutants and affected environmental media. So what does this like in practice when you combine them all? Let's look at Ukraine. And this map shows the environmental incidents recorded from the start of the full-scale invasion of through to April 2026. As you can see, the highest concentration of incidents is located near the front line and around major urban centers. Kyiv also kind of stands out as an area with a significant number of incidents. And kind of, in fact, you could say that no part of the country has not been infected. And because we categorize incidents by kind of facility or sector, we're able to kind of split it into certain facilities of interest. So this is looking at military sites. So they present a kind of particularly challenging combination of environmental risks because they often contain toxic or explosive or difficult to detect substances. Access is like frequently restricted due to unexploded ordnance, and remediation can be delayed for years while mine clearance takes place. Potential contaminants include heavy metals associated with munitions, explosive residues, and other hazardous substances. In many cases, former military sites become long-term restricted access areas or require extensive remediation programs. In the interest of time, I won't kind of go into too much detail on these, but here's a different example looking at agricultural storage and then fossil fuel infrastructure as well. And kind of importantly, this framework is not limited to Ukraine. We've also applied this framework in Sudan and more recently Iran. So in Iran, we've documented more than 500 incidents of potential environmental harm, including impacts on military facilities and major industrial and energy-related sites. This demonstrates how the framework can be rapidly applied across different and changing conflict settings. Yeah, a lot of focus in Tehran as well, and in the Persian Gulf. But yeah, WISEN is not intended to exist in isolation. Armed conflicts may generate different forms of environmental harm, and no single method can capture them all. Alongside incident-based approaches such as WISEN, we're seeing the emergence of a broader ecosystem of monitoring tools, including satellite damage mapping, landscape change analysis, atmospheric monitoring, and more commonly, AI-assisted approaches. Other forms of environmental knowledge are equally important, including ecological monitoring, environmental sampling, citizen science, local knowledge, and humanitarian assessments. Together, these approaches can contribute to a wider environmental data commons for armed conflicts, helping connect fragmented evidence and build a more complete understanding of how wars affect people, ecosystems, and landscape over time. If implemented at a global scale, which we hope we can, WISEN could become an important resource for understanding and responding to the environmental consequences of war, helping make environmental harm more visible across conflicts worldwide. And that's all I've got to present so far. So thanks for listening. And yeah, I'll pass back to the moderator.